this whole conversation at the root of it probably has more to do with the fact that just Black women are in a society that is not set up for them to thrive. This is a channel that is going to be mostly objective as possible. But every now and then I'm going to editorialize. So anytime you see me on the screen, this is me giving my editorial opinion. But when you see me off the screen, I am going to present some facts that lead to whatever claims that I'm making or bring some more objectivity as we're trying to do in this conversation. So the question of the day is this benefiting or being demonstrably detrimental to Black women in particular? Because that's who I care about right now. What is the true facts about what is life like for unpartnered Black women in society? Some objective reporting about what it is that Black women seek on both ends of this PickMe girl debate, and why we should have a little bit more empathy for both sides. I can think of at least 4 good reasons why being partnered is a matter of life or death for Black women, or it feels like it might be a matter of life or death for Black women. Number 1 is just the basics of cost of living, right? So being able to manage rent, sharing the cost of being housed. It could be a matter of I'm unhoused or I am housed if I am partnered with the right person, or not with the right person, but just partnered, right? Then there's just the basic physiological needs, right? So I need food. Is it going to be way more affordable for me to split the cost of groceries with a partner that I live with in a house that I'm sharing rent with or I'm sharing the mortgage with? Absolutely. Is it going to be more affordable for me to cover my medical costs, like just going to see a general practitioner, my family doctor on a day-to-day basis, and just in general, is health insurance going to cost a lot less? Yes, absolutely. Clothing. I mean, it sounds so simple, and we'll get to the whole conversation around, being an independent woman, being able to buy your own clothing, buy your own things, etc. But for a lot of women, hey, if they have someone who they're partnered with who's willing to cover those costs for them and make living a lot more affordable. We're not talking about designer clothes right now. We're just talking about just being clothed, right? Having a partner allows you, or allows some women, to be able to make that otherwise unaffordable purchase. I quickly did some research. I had this in my outline about whether or not your net worth has any impact based on whether you're single or if you're married, and it depends. It's a asterisk. So you and your partner would have to agree on how you're managing your finances to determine whether or not you being partnered with that person actually raises your individual net worth. But again, it's a gateway for Black women who historically have had significantly lower net worth, or net worth in terms of like having savings and having investments and having assets that are accruing in value. Your net worth is significantly going to go up and increase if you are partnered with the right person and you make an agreement to put your finances together in a way that benefits you as well as your partner. So we said cost of living, we said rent, we said basic physiological needs like food, clothing, water, shelter. But then there's also building your social and professional network. And that goes back to like the history of what marriage was really about during certain periods of times. It was a contractual agreement saying that, hey, you marrying into this family, into this brand prestigious name, gives you access to certain privileges. And that still happens today, even if it's more informally, right? Especially for Black women, again, who tend to be the most marginalized group of women in the world globally. Marrying into a certain family or partnering with the right man, woman, whoever you might be partnering with. Well, let's just say for the sake of argument, a heterosexual cisgender relationship, because then we can talk more about the patriarchy and all that kind of stuff. But if you are partnered with the right man, that it has access to certain types of communities, that it has access to a certain amount of wealth because of his job, because of his family's historical wealth, then you now have broadened your network and access to those things as well. And depending on what your ambitions are, maybe you don't really care for that because you're just going to be a stay-at-home mom. But even if as a stay-at-home mom, you have access to social, maybe other people who can afford to have that kind of lifestyle as well. And then that becomes your community, your support group. If you have other ambitions, marrying into the right family allows you to access networks that can catapult your career or catapult your personal branding in a way that you otherwise could possibly do as a single person, but it would take a lot more energy and a lot more effort. So the biggest fear, I think, as I've been doing my research and I've been watching these videos, and I'm going to splice some of these outrageous videos that I found into this video.
Pick me girl or a pick Misha. But my question is, how am I a pick me girl when I've already been picked?
So this clip right here is a quintessential example of status anxiety, how it shows up in conversations that Black women have with one another. And I have a whole video that I did on it. It's called The Shadow Side of Black Women. I'm going to link it with the card at the top, and highly encourage you to watch that, because this is an example of Black women feel the need to assert their status based on male dictated symbols of being worthwhile versus finding intrinsic value within themselves.
That gives pick me energy as well. I noticed that men are better able to take constructive criticism from other men. However, when women try to do the same thing for other women, oftentimes they'll feel personally attacked or insulted.
I'm not even going to dwell on this too much because there's both anecdotal evidence that this is false because of things like the manosphere and the type of harmful rhetoric that is being spewed out there, and how those men, when criticized or given critical feedback, often tend to attack people who are responding to what they're saying. And then there's tangible evidence that Black women are more likely than not to go seek therapy and counseling than Black men. So this is just false.
I'm not making these videos for male validation, and I don't dislike other women. I'm making these videos to expose the truth and influence change.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
The fact that she's using one of the most famous images of a privileged white woman to make this claim of wanting to make a difference, I'm assuming within Black women's community, is problematic, and that's something for another video entirely.
In case you haven't noticed, there are growing problems in modern dating, and the mentality of modern women is influencing younger and younger generations. If we don't start speaking up now, then it'll only get worse. If a traditional woman is labeled a pick Misha, then I think it's only fair that a modern woman should be labeled pass Misha, because oftentimes modern women get passed around and passed up.
I mean, at this point, as high as everything is, I am willing to have a living roommate that I have sexual intercourse with and help me pay for things.
I thought this was a hilarious yet succinct way to make the point I made earlier, that some choices Black women make are usually for survival, that sometimes let's just put love to the side is what some think, and let me just be practical about what I need, which is right now someone to help me cover half of the expenses that I need to live. So she put this clip in here as a way to shame, but I actually think that she's making a strong point for not being a pick-me.
A lot of women were told growing up that becoming financially stable and successful on their own takes priority over getting married and starting a family. Also, being dependent on your husband is somehow viewed as wrong. However, being dependent on a man, particularly your husband, doesn't make a woman weak. It makes her a stay-at-home wife, which is what a majority of women want.
A 2020 Pew Research study showed that more than half of millennials are not married, and Black millennials are choosing not to marry at a higher rate than any other group. So this point that she's making is just demonstrably false, and it is simply a point to promote her way of thinking and approach to relationship. in doing my research and just thinking about what is this whole issue or conundrum with PickMes, right? The biggest fear seems to be on the side of those who are not the chosen, who are not seeking to be picked proactively, feeling that the pick me attitude or energy that girls are giving off is reducing their ability to find high quality romantic partners because the standards are now being set low. And to that, me editorializing, I would say that men should be mature enough to be able to handle women operating under certain standards and them being able to discern whether or not this fits their standard or not. And then they make the choice, the final decision as to whether to entertain the standard of certain women versus not, which goes back to what I'm saying about when I was growing up. So I might be mistaken, but I feel like when it was the 99s and the 2000s when I was growing up, that it was actually the opposite that people were attempting to achieve, that people were trying to play hard to get. Like that was the thing that was trendy. That was the thing that you aspired to as a woman, that men actually took you more seriously when you were not so easy to get, right? Like being easy was an insult. So I'm thinking also in like popular cultural references like Sister Sister.
Go home, Roger!
It was a long time ago that I watched this movie, but I think this was one of the main plot points in Love Jones with Nia Long's character. I just was certain that in my days that it was actually ideal for you to play hard to get, right? And that was actually what the guys were looking for. And nowadays, it might just be because of the way people create content and makes it go viral versus what's actually present and real in society, which is why I want to bring objective facts into this conversation. The thought or the idea of it going the opposite direction of women, maybe particularly Black women, but women in general, having this pick-me girl energy is more of the trend now than it has ever been. Honestly, I don't think that's true. I don't think anything has changed in the different ways that Black women, white women, whoever, I don't think there's much difference in the way that we pursue partnerships, except for maybe the very stark difference between how marriage was thought about maybe in, I don't know, the 1700s versus how we think about marriage today. There's a really, really great video on this called The History of Love that my favorite channel, School of Life, actually put together, like with objective facts about how there were shifts in society's viewpoints on how important marriage was, and also what was the premise of marriage. Was it based on love, or was it based on mutual agreement between two wealthy or one wealthy family and another family that was on its way up, that this is the bargain that we're agreeing to in exchange for this marriage, right? So except for those very stark changes in conversations around marriage, I don't think that there's been in the last, how far back should we go? How far back has pick-me energy has been around? I think pick-me energy has been around forever, to be honest with you. Whether it's for survival, whether it's for just I want to be able to say, ooh, I have a husband or I have a boyfriend. Whatever your reason is, pick-me energy has been around, right? It seemed like for men, if you had low standards as a woman, that was a turnoff. So you actually aspire to feel as if like you were harder to get, like you were, the special prize. And I'm thinking about in this conversation as well, like the whole conversation about the Lori Harvey, I don't know why it's a controversy, but every single time she's dating someone new, and how people feel, some people feel Lori Harvey is able to get away with that kind of behavior versus the average Black woman because of her access to very rich parents, especially a very famous stepfather, and just her luxurious lifestyle that she's afforded. And I beg to differ. I would hope that we live in a world where any Black woman, regardless of whether you're single, partnered, want to be partnered, etc., has the freedom and has the access to the things that you want out of life without needing to feel pressured to make a decision to be single or not. Like, that is my biggest hope. Like, my big hope is that you can do whatever the hell you want. So I feel that Lori Harvey is doing whatever she wants to do, and if another Black woman wants to do the exact same thing, by all means, she should feel free to do that. I don't think it's right to say that only Lori Harvey has the right to do it. It might be easier for her to get away with that kind of lifestyle, but it's not that it's her only begotten right to do it versus any other Black woman. So just getting that out of the way. But again, going back to the biggest fear that most Black women may have about pick me girl energy is that that sets the standard low and sets the barrier low for getting partnered. Again, I think that especially if who you're choosing as your criteria of partner, men should have the capacity to use their common sense to decide whether or not this woman's way of navigating life fits within what they're looking for, what they desire, if it's a turn on or not. If it's a turn on for them, then more power to you. If it's not, they will be able to decipher that and they will not go for it. So I don't think that standards are being lowered or increased. I think that men just want what they want. Certain men just want what they want, and it is a world where we're all trying to find the person that we're on the same page. And that's the thing that is sometimes causing anxiety. That's sometimes the thing that's causing stress, because of, again, not just because of wanting to be romantically partnered with someone because of loneliness or wanting to be cared for, like in a romantic way, but because of real needs, like, again, the Maslow hierarchy of needs that I already went through before. So my biggest goal with this video, because it's Valentine's Day, my biggest goal is how can we all live in harmony together, going after the different things that we want and, not getting in each other's way about it. And this is my list. This is my list of ways where I feel like we can live together as sisters, because the goal of this channel is to build authentic sisterhood. We might not all agree on the same thing. We might not have the same views on certain topics or on life, but it doesn't mean that we can't live in harmony. So here are my recommendations for how to cohabitate in this world together. So number one, eliminate shame on both ends. Like, we don't need to shame each other. There's no reason to make anyone feel embarrassed for the choices that they're making, because we don't know what led them to make that decision. And it goes with anything in life. Like, you don't know what drove someone to make a decision that led them down a path of addiction. You don't know what led someone down the path of, doing a certain crime, maybe out of survival. So because we don't know all the time what might be at the root or heart of people's choices, we need to allow people the freedom to choose as they see fit without shame. Now, what we can do with each other's choices is the following. The PickMes don't need to shame their single friends for not following their exact path or lifestyle. Have empathy for the fact that maybe your single friends are worried about ending up in the worst case scenario that could happen. And worst case scenarios can include ending up with an abusive partner, whether domestically or financially. Both are equally very scary. So being partnered with someone who makes your life significantly worse than it was before, even if you were trying to partner for the sake of elevating your quality of life. So pick-me's need to be, sorry, I don't know if that's a derogatory term, but if you are proudly labeling yourself as a pick-me girl, I am saying, or if someone were to put you under that category, I am saying that you should have empathy for your single friends' choices not to follow the exact same move or same strategy for various reasons. That could be worst case scenario for them. Again, domestic abuse, or it could be financial exploitation, any of those. The single friends need to be an empathetic ear. As much as you might say, I told you so, as much as you might be rolling your eyes and thinking like, well, you brought this upon yourself, I would like to ask us to offer an empathetic ear and extend a hand of grace to our PickMe girlfriends who might end up coming to us to want to vent about something that went wrong in the relationship, like whether maybe they do end up divorced or breaking up with the person and they need to come to someone who they trust, maybe that's you, to vent. Please, please, please have empathy and be there to support them in their time of need. Maybe your PickMe friend decides to stay in a relationship no matter how verbally abusive it is. I'm going to say verbally for now because I think physical abuse is a different level where that requires a different type of intervention. But let's say that your friend decides to stay in a relationship that is verbally abusive, sometimes a little bit financially exploitative, and they come to you as someone to vent or to confide in with their situation. Please, please, please have empathy. Like, there's too much going on in this world, and there's too much that's going against us as Black women for us to now start to like be contentious with one another. Like, we gotta stick together. We gotta stick together. So I am imploring that you listen with the empathetic ear, but then also know your boundaries. Know that you might not be the person, you can be the person that can listen to them vent and air out their grievances, but you might want to point them instead also to some more helpful resources that can help them in the situation that they're in, much more effective and tangible resources like therapy. So you might want to suggest who they can talk to as a professional that can really help them walk through these issues and problems. And who knows, maybe you're opening the door for them to get to a state of enlightenment that they otherwise weren't at when they were deciding to be partnered in this relationship in the first place. That is between them, God, and their therapist. But you can point them at least to the resources and say that, you know what, I'm here for you. Like, no matter what you choose, I am here to make sure that you are okay emotionally and definitely physically. When it comes to physical abuse, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to directly say that you should do whatever you can in terms of interventions to stop that from continuing, because that is true protective friendship when it comes to that kind of behavior. Another way we can live in harmony. This is the second, am I ranking them? So the first suggestion that I gave is the bare minimum. The second recommendation I'm going to give is something that is probably meeting people halfway, but my third suggestion is really going to be where I want us to go, and we'll get to that in a second. So my second suggestion for us living in harmony is to create true communities of reciprocity. So what do I mean by that? I mean, there are needs, basic needs sometimes, like we said, that are being met or that people are trying to protect when they're going in either direction, either the pick me direction or the I'm going to be single and stick out and wait for the right person direction. And I think that if we create communities of reciprocity where some of us can meet those needs while we're waiting for whoever our partner is, whatever criteria we're using to find a partner, that just makes living as a Black woman a lot easier for us, right? And that's really where community and sisterhood is built. Now, if you still decide that the pick me route is the route for you, what you can do is still say, let me figure out a way to support my single sisters in a way that is not condescending, in a way that is not pressuring them to make moves the same way you made moves or follow your same path to finding partnership, but is meeting them on their own terms. So ask your single friends, you know what? I'm settled now. I have what I need. How can I meet your needs? Or how can I support you in getting you to meet your needs, right? Maybe your friend needs an introduction to a certain type of person. and it might not be the way that you think you should approach finding a romantic partner. But if you know the person in your network, if you know somebody who fits that criteria, why not just introduce them and then, be the maid of honor? Obviously, I think this goes for whether or not we're having a debate about PickMes or singleness or not. If you see a friend someone you consider a real friend, who is struggling financially, please do not put conditions depending on the situation. I don't know if they're just entering into a hardship, no fault of their own, and are people of integrity. They have not shown that they're someone who takes advantage of people by purposely putting themselves in desperate financial situations. If you're in that kind of friendship and you see your friend struggling financially or to meet basic needs, just help them. My best friend to this day right now, she is one of those people. I was struggling once long ago, once upon a time, and without question, she just sent me through Venmo like a certain amount of cash that helped me pay for my groceries that week. That just got me through, right? And I've known a couple of women who have helped me in different ways in that kind of nature, whether it's introducing me to someone for an informational meeting that ended up hiring me, or introducing me to a client for my own consulting firm, right? If you have your needs met, however means you took to get it met, that does not mean that you cannot pay it forward and help other people, but just make sure you're pleased doing it on their terms and not based on your own bias, because we're not trying to impose our beliefs on anyone. We're not trying to cause any more strife in this community with the PickMes against the others. We're just trying to live in harmony. So if you see your friend struggling, needing of support, help a sister out. Now, single friends might be saying, well, what does the PickMe need from me, right? She got her boo, she has her king, like he's paying for all of her trips and vacations and whatever else she needs to go shopping. So what can I actually offer her? I think that we underestimate the importance of platonic relationships way too much in our society, and especially within the Black community. Platonic relationships, meaning that we're not using those relationships to gain a leg up. We're not trying to network up, right? And I know I just said now before that if someone needed the introduction to get a job, that you should offer it to them. Yes, by all means do that. But the initial decision to become friends, I don't think should be conditional. I think it should be based on, do I see some characteristic in this person that I admire and that makes them truly someone that I enjoy being around, that I enjoy having them in my company. And so what I would say, and this is probably something that the PickMes can also offer to the singles as well, because sometimes, and I've had this happen before, a best friend of mine will suddenly find the love of their life and would disappear from the face of the earth and never to be seen again. No more brunches, no more hanging out. And that can feel very painful. That can hurt just as much as a romantic breakup. So on both sides, what the single and the PickMe friends can offer are genuine platonic friendships where you're enjoying each other's company and you're being there, knowing that someone can call you up if they're feeling lonely and they just want to have a conversation, they just want to have a laugh, they want to have a watch party, or if you just want to just go for a walk. It doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't always have to be spending money, but just spending time with the person and making sure the person knows very clearly that if they feel lonely, if they feel isolated, that they can reach out to you. That's more than enough. And now, drumroll please. This is the most ideal recommendation that I have for the whole solution to this strife between Black women who are on the PickMe versus the single independent woman side of things. And the argument is for Black women to create more women-led socialist organizations and movements. I know, that sounds extreme, that sounds intense. What the hell does this have to do with finding a romantic partner? But hear me out. If we think about it, think about the statistics that I brought up, think about the core reason why Black women often find themselves making these kind of hard decisions about who to partner with and why. It all boils down to the way that the capitalistic systems in our society, the patriarchal, the way the patriarchal systems are set up, and the way that misogynoir is set up in our society for our failure. There are exceptional exceptions to this rule, and I talked about it in my podcast episode that you can find on this channel. But not every Black woman is going to be the exception to the rule in this system of pulling. First of all, there's no such thing as pulling yourself up from your bootstraps. Let's just get that out there. But for the case of an argument, there's not going to be 100% of the women out here in the world who are really, really putting in effort to do their best and to elevate their standard of living, not to become multimillionaires, just to be like on a basic, like I'm good. 100% of those people are not going to be able to pull themselves up by themselves. It's just impossible. The statistics show it, and it's also just genuinely impossible for that to happen. In the description box for this video, I'm going to put links to resources, including the blog post that I wrote about how women organized radically back during the civil rights movement across the diaspora to support one another through socialist-minded movements or socialist-inspired movements. I'm also going to put links to research papers that show a clear, distinguished link or correlation between adopting certain socialist practices like universal healthcare, universal access to state-supported or state-funded institutions like free higher education, etc., how those correlate positively with a better standard of living for marginalized people. We are the marginalized people. We are basically the poster child of the marginalized people. So there's actual evidence, like overwhelming evidence at this point, that it's a shame that it's not just called a fact. But there's overwhelming evidence that socialism and socialist principles are going to be the key to freeing women and getting to that ideal stage that I said I would like to have, which is that Black women are just doing whatever they want. Whatever they decide to do, they're able to do it because there are no severe consequences to their ability to meet their basic physiological needs due to systemic oppression. So this video is not the video to go into the whole way that step-by-step that approach is going to happen. I have those resources linked down below in the description box. But I just want to put it out there that this whole conversation at the root of it probably has more to do with the fact that just Black women are in a society that is not set up for them to thrive. And that if they really, really wanted to see systemic change happen, if they really wanted to see all of their dreams come true, they might want to consider starting a socialist movement. And they might want to consider doing that together as a Black woman community. So with that all being said, let me know what your thoughts are. I feel like this video was all over the place, but I know that this says that it's in defense of PickMes, but this is more in defense of just us as a community of Black women. And I want us all to just extend grace to one another and understand that we are all making the decisions with the information that we have available to us that we feel is going to put us in the best position for survival and to thrive. And so on this lovely Valentine's Day, I want us to love each other. I want us to love ourselves over anything else, over romantic partnerships, over financial gain. Make sure that you are in tune with loving yourself, and then as that love overflows, be able to extend that love to the rest of your sisters. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video if I didn't scare you away already. Bye.